Recording. All right, well, here we go. Welcome everybody. I am McKinney. I think if you're here, you probably know me well. This is my capstone project presentation for the culmination of my occupational therapy doctoral degree. And I'll be talking about everything that I've been doing under the mentorship of Sarah Schwagel and Julie Solly for the last 14 weeks. So here we go. The title of my capstone project is Program Development, Enhancing Well-Being Through Belongingness and Social Connection. All right. So my start with OT really began in spaces that built community. That's where I learned about OT, and that's where my passion for it kind of began. My first experiences with the disability community were at an accessible summer camp for kids who have either a disability or a chronic illness in Texas called Camp John Mark. And that was really one of the biggest inspirations for me because it was so easy how their universally designed camp just made everything accessible. All of the kids could do what they wanted to do, and that stuck with me for a while because it's a summer camp, but that is occupational therapy, is giving people that access. And then also through just kind of observing school and church programs, there were always different clubs, organizations, or groups that were just kind of in my peripheral experience. And then especially as I spent more time in St. Louis, the power soccer community really showed me the just depth and beauty of the disability community. And so I have been shaped by community spaces myself, sports, theater, friend groups, all those things growing up. And I really was passionate about community as something important for OT to focus on. So since I can't do a doctoral project off of a willy-nilly whim, socialization is part of the OT scope of practice. It is in our practice framework, the OTPF. Here's a little clip from that document. And occupation, if anyone is unfamiliar with it, is the meaningful activities that people do every day from an OT perspective. It doesn't necessarily mean the job that you have. And socialization is huge. Everybody at this presentation today, I'm sure, has interacted with their community, be it in person, virtually, or otherwise. And we know from research I've learned in many a class that community is vitally important to well-being for all people, and especially important for those in the disability community when accessing socialization, accessing their community might be impeded or more challenging than it really should be. So part of the research that I did to begin this project was really about kind of the science of socialization. So I found 11 different papers that showed quality of life, self-efficacy, which is the ability to be in charge of yourself and feel like you can make your own choices, participation in activities, and positive feelings are all very closely linked to socializing and being inside of a community. And it improves your well-being, your overall mental health, physical health, access to resources is better when you have access to your people. And so with this research, with this knowledge, I had to make the big goal, right? I found my big goal with Coalition for Truth and Independence and Community Power Project. So CTI was founded in 2013 as a radically inclusive and fully intersectional community group in St. Louis. They started as small neighborhood groups and eventually came together into a larger county group and city group, and they worked to solve community issues. Simple things like curb cuts, poorly placed light posts, potholes, and things that needed to be fixed so that the community in St. Louis could have access to all the things they want and need to do. CTI kind of fell out in COVID in 2020, as many groups did. They just lost some traction. There's still very many members of CTI, even out past the pandemic in St. Louis. But bump in the road, membership was kind of, we weren't as regular. And so in 2023, Community Power Project began as the newest iteration of those community groups. CPP wanted to be the creative incubator to social goals, creative projects, and kind of visibility for the disability community of St. Louis. So Coalition of Truth and Independence is kind of the foundation, the mama organization, and then Community Power Project is the little bird who's trying to fly the nest with all of the projects that I'm about to talk about. So we have these big organizations, we have this research. Where do I fit into it? It basically came down to shared goals and filling a role that was necessary. I shared goals with creating accessible social spaces. Julie Solly, who is on the lead team of Coalition for Truth and Independence, and Sarah Schwagel, who is the team lead for Community Power Project, both heard my vision, said, yes, we share that same goal, come work with us. And so that's when I started filling those gaps in just kind of the logistical team that they needed. I had time, which was huge, social energy, and the people and clinical skills that might be needed to do something like this. Looking at those community needs, once I had my network, we started talking to people in the community. And after looking at a variety of factors, we basically came down to the conclusion of there are lots of activity-specific groups in St. Louis: advocacy, education, vocational training, sports, but there really wasn't anything that was focused on being social. And we heard from leaders of those groups that at times it was difficult to get the work done that they needed to do because folks wanted to be social, which is wonderful and great. Go to your advocacy meeting and have so much fun, but not so much so that the advocacy doesn't get done, because that is super important. So we said, let's make a plan. Let's figure it out. We knew first and foremost, we want to make a program. I'll save the long paragraphs under each one of these because we're about to talk in more detail, but we knew we wanted to make a program. I needed to demonstrate the role of OT in the community. How is OT relevant to CTI and Community Power Project? I am a non-disabled person, but I have this information, I have this experience that blends really beautifully with lived experience of the disability community and the logistical power that I can bring to that equation. We also knew we needed funding. Nonprofits are not profitable. And so I knew we needed to make some money, spread awareness of what we were doing and why we were doing it. I had a wonderful connection to Charting the Life course, which is a curriculum and toolkit based out of University of Missouri, Kansas City. And we were looking at the community within Power Soccer. as kind of an example of what a thriving community looks like. And then generally, what is the culture of disability? What is the modern culture? And what are the best history sources that aren't a textbook written by somebody who is not part of that community, basically. All right, now we're getting into the nitty-gritty. Fundraising. So I wrote and ran a Give STL Day 2024 fundraising campaign that had lots of emails and templates. Social media was crazy at that moment. Our social media director, Shannon, was absolutely vital for me as a support and guide through that process. And we ended up making over $1,000 to support our programming, which is amazing. Gives us about $90 of budget per event, which doesn't sound like a huge amount, but when you're sly and crafty like we are, that can lead to some pretty great events. And then I also got guidance on what budgeting looked like, funding sources, grant history of CTI to kind of guide expectations for what that would look like in the future from Julie. And then Sarah and I were actually featured on the Show Me St. Louis morning show for KSDK, sorry, St. Louis acronyms, for KSDK, the news channel. So if you do some deep digging on their website, you can find little flashes of us holding our sign and waving at the camera. And then the role of OT was that other goal. This was more for my benefit, I think. I had enough buy-in with the team. Everybody had already said, yes, we want you to be here. But doing this research and interviews was important to me to kind of guide why I was here and kind of almost validating the legitimacy of me being part of this team. I'm a student still, so having that research mentorship from other OTs and kind of background of literature gave me a lot of confidence to move forward. And I thought that was bigger than I expected. I thought this was going to be a small part of the project, and it made a big difference for me. All right, and then the experience with charting the life course. So I went to Kansas City on April 23rd to 25th, which coincidentally was also the days our fundraising campaign launched. So that was a busy week, to say the least, and learned the curriculum and toolkit that is targeted towards individuals with disabilities and their families. So the CLC toolkit kind of is a non-clinical PEOP, which if you're an OT student, you know what that is. And if not, it's kind of how an OT would break down how people are interacting with their world. Is the environment getting in their way? What are their resources? What are the person and physical factors that are coming together? But charting the life course is cool because it is not clinical. So you can hand it to somebody who's never gone to OT, isn't familiar with medicine, and they can use it. It was developed by OTs in University of Missouri, Kansas City. And I think is a super cool resource. It's well researched. There's no copyright, so organizations and families can use it to their best need and kind of adapt it. So before I get too soapboxy, I'm going to move on. But there was a wonderful keynote speech by Mr. Chris Worth, husband of one of my mentors, Julie, and he spoke to the conference about the dignity of taking risks, especially for those with disabilities. And it was very fun to hear the buzz throughout the rest of the showcase as everyone was saying, oh, did you hear that talk? Oh, that Chris Worth guy, he's so wonderful. And I think we are capitalizing on some of the things that he spoke about in the program we made, because being social is risky. People might not want to talk to you. You might meet someone you don't like quite as much, be nervous about where to sit. And that is something that is a routine risk that folks need to take to find their community. So here's kind of an example of what I got out of this conference. The star on the left side of the screen is one of their examples for breaking down a goal or an issue to the small parts of it. So I used this as kind of a guide for how we should document our group program that I'll talk about in just a little bit. But dividing it up, looking at things like strengths and assets, technology, the relationships inside the group, outside the group, and seeing all those things as tools. And that was really big as a problem-solving option in building our program, and also for reflecting on how well things went, because you come off that program. I'm a social person, the like extroverted high of like, oh, I just spent 3 hours like talking to cool people. And then I got to go, okay, but how can this be better? Sure, it was fun, but where can we improve? And that kind of gave me that context. Okay. The next goal that we were working on in my learning plan was awareness. We knew this was going to be crucial because we hadn't ever existed before. We had no foundation of community power project to work with, and we had a good foundation with Coalition for Truth and Independence. However, it had been really multiple years since that community had been active. So we were kind of working from scratch. And we went everywhere. We did everything. We made an Instagram that, like I said, our social media director, Shannon, had been crafting for a couple of months. We really capitalized on that. Facebook, of course, our website. And then we went old-fashioned. I had a goal to reach 200 people, either with an advertisement or by word of mouth. And we passed out 90 plus individual flyers. I sent 200 plus emails, and then social media groups galore. And that's not counting the many wonderful conversations and kind of elevator pitches that I had walking past somebody and saying, hey, come to this cool camp. Here's a flyer. My name's McKinney. I wasn't nervous in social settings before, but I think I'm just immune to talking to strangers at this point. So we advertised to a bunch of different groups in St. Louis that we knew had adults with disabilities who were either previously involved with programming or was within our network somehow. And we just did everything we could to get the word out. Okay, here we go. The meat of it. So we kind of had 3 different types of community in this project. This community activities, meeting people, was our in-person, local, close to home community. And it was absolutely the best part of this experience for me. We had 2 Saturday meetups at the Schlafly Library in Central West End, where we had a games day, a movie day. We had 28 people come total, which was super exciting. I remember telling Sarah early on in this process that if we had 4 people show up, I would be excited because it meant 4 people were there. And we had almost 30, which was really, really cool. And 15 of those were adults with disabilities. So we made sure to craft camp community activities, meeting people, to be accepting of everyone. It is designed for folks with disabilities. They are definitely our target supporting audience. However, we know people have friends, people have family, and we wanted to leave space for the entire community to come together. Another reason that was important was people had kind of reported that it was difficult that community groups and organizations were siloed by maybe diagnosis or geared towards children. So I remember a member who came said that she always wanted to go to a specific group's activity, but that wasn't her diagnosis, and so she wasn't ever able to go. And so we are bringing together the diverse disability community, because in, I think, our opinion, not to speak on behalf of Sarah or Julie, but that's when we're strongest as a community, when the diversity and full scope of people can be there. So we had some really good reviews. This is kind of the warm and fuzzy section of this presentation. We had somebody say, it's great to be in a place where it's all disabilities. One person said, we should do a potluck soon. Just the fact that he said we and soon, we hadn't been talking about what to do next time, and all of a sudden he was saying, let's have a potluck. So I'll put it on the calendar. Come out to the potluck, folks. We had one lovely email response in the middle right there. It's kind of long, so I won't read it out loud, but it was just really cool that people were saying what we had hoped to happen. And that was so exciting for me. So before I get lost in the warm and fuzzies, I was also able to support the research of Sarah Schwegel. She is helping develop the collegiate division of power soccer through founding the Jerry Frick Collegiate Cup, which is happening this December at Auburn University. And it will be the first collegiate specific power soccer tournament to happen, definitely in the United States, I think, ever. So that is pretty awesome. And to gain an audience to kind of announce this, they paired it with a really wonderful college preparedness panel. We were able to talk to 9 athletes, which was wonderful. I think we had a couple of parents of people who weren't able to be there because their kiddos were, their high schoolers were playing in games at this tournament. And we got to talk about all of the things that happen when you leave home and begin college with a disability. It was a really wonderful educational moment, and the energy of the room was really high. Athletes were excited about it, and parents were over the moon that anybody was thinking, oh, let's give these kids a heads up. Let's give these parents some help. So that was really cool. And then the Turnstone tournament itself was just exquisite, honestly. It was over 65 teams. Sarah hit me in the comments with maybe the right number. But there were many, many teams from all across the country. We had Sacramento to Boston. And it was a really cool example of what, let's see. Oh, 39 teams. I was going big. Next year, maybe we'll hit 60. But there were 39 teams there of athletes who play power wheelchair soccer. And it was a really cool example of how the disability community comes together and is so supportive and welcoming. It is a unique space to be at Turnstone where nobody questions why anybody's there, and everyone is ready to support or help if needed. The flow and just ease of existence was really cool, and that even in accepting accessible spaces, that is hard to see in such an intense way. It was just awesome. I loved it. All right. And then we also had a part of our goals. So Turnstone and the soccer tournament was kind of the second community space that I was talking about. We had our local camp, national soccer, also international. We had multiple players present at that tournament who have played on the US national team, which was neat because they recently were in Australia, I believe, for the Power Soccer World Cup. And this is kind of that virtual culture that anybody can access. So our most kind of peripheral space, but still an important one. We made a page on our website that has kind of a big index of cultural pieces and history for the disability community. We wanted to make a place where people could find really good modern examples of disability culture and see that people with disabilities aren't just at the hospital, they aren't just in allied health textbooks, and the culture is vast and interesting and cool. So we made that in ways where people can submit pieces to include. So it's not just coming from our limited brains, it is available to everybody. So our hope was that by giving room for people to send in an email submission, we're going to be increasing the visibility of a really wide variety of artists, writers, storytellers. I'm particularly excited about the Gateway to Pride exhibit is at the Missouri History Museum. Our own Chris Worth, who is featured in the pictures above, has pieces in the Missouri History Museum right now. And then also the ABCs of Disabilities is a local author, Sean Gold. He wrote an ABC book talking about disabilities so that it was a young age range geared towards kids. And it's just, I read an advanced copy this past Friday, and it's just the perfect way to talk about disability and show kids how we're all different, and that is what makes us the same. And then sipping Dom Perignon through a straw was just a personal favorite of mine, so I threw it in there. Eddie Ndopu is hysterical and an excellent writer. I encourage everyone to Google him and read his book. I don't have time to go over it now, but shoot me an email if you want to discuss. I'll be happy to. All right. And then part of my project was looking at sustainability for these beautiful organizations, how CTI and CPP can continue to be successful in the long term, and when I maybe am no longer around to help. I'm definitely sticking around to help with camp. I can't leave my baby. It's my new favorite thing. But you know, one day. So I think a big thing is to delegate. We have a small team and lots of projects, which is wonderful. But I think it also means there's room to include more people. Like I said earlier, CPP was invented to kind of be an incubator of creative ideas and projects in the disability community. And so bringing in more disabled team members who are passionate about that as well, I think can only improve things and honestly create just more manageable schedules to folks who don't have 560 extra hours and 14 weeks to really hyper focus on this wonderful organization. Another thing that I would recommend for continued sustainability is more visibility. Continuing to be in online spaces to reach out to local organizations, set up meetings, make phone calls, I think will be huge because the people that we've interacted with so far have had nothing but positive things to say to us. And so I think if we keep reaching out, we can make a really, really strong network in the St. Louis area. And then to just continue supporting the programs. I think consistency with programming and fundraising will be really, really big. We've seen what big breaks in programming can do. I know the pandemic was an extraordinarily unique situation, but it's important to be consistent so people know they can keep coming back. And I think this is an excellent area for other capstone students in the future to really kind of come and shine and use their OT skills to continue to develop programming. Professionally, I grew a lot over the course of these 14 weeks. Program development is a new skill. I can very squarely say that I have done that with relative success, if I'm being very humble. And then I also had a lot of opportunity to make professional judgment calls and really network and communicate with others in a way that I hadn't done before. I am a relatively organized person. I'm good at kind of just functioning through my day, but I've always had a schedule made for me, professors and teachers to say, here's what you need to do, go do it. And I had the steering wheel through this process, and that gave a lot to me in room to grow, I think, which was wonderful. And just the overall experience also showed me what a supportive team looks like. The team with CTI and CPP has set the bar far too high for groups that I want to work with and the standard of a good coworker or boss. I am so grateful to Julie and Sarah, especially, for all of the support they've given me through this process. It would not have happened without them at all. And then just the mushy stuff. I loved this project, guys. The disability community is so welcoming, so fun, so funny and exciting. I think if you aren't consuming disability culture or participating in disability spaces, you are losing out on a really cool group of friends and people to make your life better. And I also really learned that OT is applicable everywhere. I was a little nervous that I might lose my clinical skills over this process, and that is not true. That did not happen. I got to flex the knowledge and practice that I had gained throughout school so many times that I really don't think we would have been half as successful as we were if, or at least if I was, if I hadn't had my OT knowledge to support me as I moved through program development. And I've talked about most of these conclusions already, but they're just kind of the hard final things. I've been really seeing the impact we've made in St. Louis. We connected with 28 plus people in the St. Louis area, shook hands with that many people, and we have even more in our email list who maybe couldn't attend camp or said, I can't make it this day, I want to be there, sign me up. So I think we really are doing good things and moving towards improving the well-being of folks in the city with what we've done. And that is more than I could ever have wished for this process. Here are my resources if anyone wants to read a scholarly article. And then a great big thank you to everyone for being here. My e-portfolio has all of the nitty-gritty details of that. It's basically a big website about this project. If anyone wants to look at that, there's the QR code. Please feel free to stalk my Capstone website. And that's all. Thank you so much. If anybody has questions or comments, please feel free to jump in. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Thank you, Jessie. She said, fabulous work. I appreciate that.
McKinney, I was going to echo the same thoughts. I was just amazed to hear about the project, and I'm just incredibly proud of all the work you've done. So fun to see you on the other side of the project, for sure. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, well, I will give a little bit of extra time if anyone has a formal question, if they're typing in the chat or anything. I'll blabber on for another 30 seconds or so, give you a chance to do that. But thank you again for everybody who came to this little presentation. I say it's little, it was my big final presentation. I did it. And it's been such a wonderful process to learn. Everyone here, I was looking through the names as people were signing in, has been a huge part of my journey with OT. And I'm just grateful to everyone who's here. So thank you so much. Right. Well,
It's been so much fun working with you over the past 14 weeks, McKinney. Like, pulling these projects together has been incredible. And I think you're really making changes in the community.
Thanks. Well, not without you. Sarah was my right hand and my brain through this whole process. I couldn't have done it without you. So thank you so much, everybody. On that lovely note, I think I will stop our recording and let you all get back to your evenings. So thank you so much.